The creator of the microprocessor turned his back on Silicon Valley and now reveals what his former colleagues try to hide. Physical reality as you know it is a measurable illusion. Federico Faggin, the man who revolutionized computing, mathematically proves that your consciousness does not arise from the brain, but from a quantum field that you can control. MIT laboratories have recorded that heart cells respond to emotions before the brain processes them. Princeton University documented deviations in random generators during global events. But why are these studies marginalized? Why do physicists who study consciousness lose funding? The very executives who finance public papers debunking the mind's power hire quantum physicists for confidential projects. While you're taught to be realistic, corporate leaders pay fortunes for retreats where they learn systematic visualization, the same technique Napoleon Hill uncovered when interviewing 500 millionaires a century ago. The reason for the silence is simple. If you discover that organized thoughts affect quantum probabilities, that emotions amplify this effect, that your persistence can overcome material inertia, you become immune to manipulation. Faggin lost funding. Hill had chapters censored. Both paid the price for revealing that you are not an accidental biological machine. You are a conscious field interacting with the fabric of reality. The elite know it. Now you will uncover the same 3 pillars they use to turn consciousness into tangible power. For decades, advanced laboratories have recorded an intriguing phenomenon. Every human thought generates measurable changes in electromagnetic fields. Researchers have documented these findings in technical reports, many of which remain restricted from the public. While this data accumulates, billions of people go about their lives believing they inhabit a purely mechanical universe, where consciousness is merely an accidental byproduct of neurological processes. A significant shift in this view occurred when Federico Faggin, the renowned creator of the microprocessor, challenged the materialist paradigm after decades of designing electronic circuits. His conclusion defied established conventions. Consciousness doesn't emerge from matter. The organizing principle gives rise to material structures. Independently, Napoleon Hill spent 20 years investigating success patterns among hundreds of exceptional individuals, discovering recurring principles that allowed deliberate modeling of reality. These researchers, coming from different fields, converged on a complementary understanding. Passive observation of reality is an illusion. At every moment, human attention actively participates in the collapse of quantum possibilities into tangible experiences. Various institutions invest considerable resources in studying these phenomena, while the practical application of this knowledge remains restricted to specific circles. Faggin mathematically demonstrated something contemplative traditions have affirmed for millennia. Consciousness isn't an epiphenomenon, but a fundamental field that permeates the cosmos. His equations reveal surprising properties of quantum information. It carries unique characteristics and is resistant to copying or cloning. Simultaneously, Hill developed systematic methods to access what he called the Mastermind, a subtle interface connecting individual intentions to the field of universal possibilities. When contemporary physics dialogues with human potential development, a practical understanding of personal transformation emerges. This isn't metaphysical speculation, but verifiable protocols for consciously interacting with the structure of experience. While some sectors promote external solutions to internal issues, others prefer educational models based on passive information absorption. If quantum information constitutes the universe's foundation, human consciousness directly interacts with this informational field. Techniques like focused visualization, conviction-charged affirmations, and directed persistence become legitimate tools for interacting with reality. When someone intensely concentrates their attention on a specific goal, probability patterns reorganize, not through simple optimism, but through active participation in the fabric of reality. Certain groups have preserved fragments of this knowledge through the centuries, applying it in various ways. Today, Faggin's discoveries are available in scientific publications, and the methods codified by Hill circulate widely. Old barriers are beginning to dissolve. The fundamental question that emerges is no longer whether this interaction between consciousness and physical reality exists. Growing evidence points in this direction. The central point has become, who's willing to explore these possibilities consciously? If reality demonstrates plasticity and consciousness reveals itself as fundamental, who really drives the development of their own experience? The publication of Newton's Principia Mathematica in 1687 marked a turning point in human understanding of the universe. The cosmos came to be seen as a predictable machine, governed by deterministic laws, where consciousness played a secondary role. For centuries, academic institutions propagated this mechanistic view, establishing an artificial separation between mind and matter. René Descartes contributed to this split by dividing reality into res cogitans, thought, and res extensa, matter, creating a dichotomy that allowed science to focus on studying material components, while questions related to consciousness were relegated to other domains. This conceptual division served practical purposes, but also limited the integral investigation of human experience. Federico Faggin perfectly exemplified this trajectory. As a pioneer in solid-state physics and inventor of the microprocessor in 1971, he revolutionized worldwide computing operating within the materialist paradigm. For decades, he worked under the premise that consciousness naturally emerged from neural complexity, a view widely accepted in the scientific community. Quantum experiments began challenging these established certainties. Subatomic particles demonstrated different behaviors when observed. Properties of quantum information revealed characteristics incompatible with classical materialism. In 1990, Faggin confronted fundamental questions. If consciousness arises exclusively from physical processes, how do we explain subjective experience? Why does the perception of red transcend mere electrical impulses? How do computers process data without experiencing any form of consciousness? After years of rigorous investigation, Faggin reached a conclusion that challenged decades of scientific thinking. Consciousness precedes matter, not the other way around. His mathematical models demonstrated that quantum fields exhibit proto-conscious properties, suggesting a more fundamental relationship between mind and physical reality. In parallel, Napoleon Hill undertook an equally revealing investigation. Commissioned by Andrew Carnegie in 1908, he spent 2 decades interviewing 500 of the most successful individuals in the United States. Among them, figures like Rockefeller, Ford, and Edison revealed surprisingly similar practices: systematic visualization, structured auto-suggestion, and connection with what they called infinite intelligence. The concept of the mastermind emerged from these investigations not as a poetic metaphor, but as an observable phenomenon. When multiple consciousnesses align around a common goal, an amplified field of possibilities emerges. Hill documented cases where ideas considered impossible materialized through this collective resonance. Curiously, modern quantum physics offers models that corroborate this observation. Interconnected consciousnesses can generate coherent fields capable of influencing probabilities. Hill's original manuscripts contained even more intriguing revelations, later edited out of public versions. He described experiences where prominent industrialists reported accessing information libraries during contemplative states, obtaining complete solutions to technical problems. Tesla confirmed similar practices. Edison maintained a dedicated space where he entered altered states to solve engineering challenges. Recognizing consciousness as a fundamental force presents profound implications for established structures. If every human being possesses an innate capacity to interact with reality creatively, traditional models of authority and knowledge need revision. Educational systems based on memorization become incomplete. Approaches that consider humans as passive information receivers prove limited. Historical documents reveal that research on remote viewing was conducted during the Cold War with significant results. Contemporary tech corporations employ consultants specializing in mental focusing techniques. Meanwhile, skepticism remains the dominant stance in many academic circles. The convergence between Faggin's discoveries about the quantum nature of consciousness and the practical methodology developed by Hill represents a powerful synthesis. When physics confirms that consciousness interacts with quantum fields and personal development offers protocols for this interaction, a new paradigm of human possibilities emerges. How exactly does this interaction between consciousness and reality work? How can we consciously access this potential? The answers begin with a deeper understanding of the holographic nature of human consciousness itself. MIT neuroscientists have documented a phenomenon that defies conventional explanations. Individual heart cells demonstrate independent, conscious responses, reacting to emotional stimuli before the brain even processes the information. Federico Faggin interpreted this discovery as evidence of his theory. Each human cell functions as a holographic fragment containing complete information of the cosmic whole. In physical holograms, each fragment preserves the complete image, cutting a holographic plate into multiple parts, and each piece still projects the complete figure. Faggin expanded this principle to consciousness. The human being isn't an isolated entity inhabiting a body, but an interconnected conscious field, where each cell resonates with universal intelligence. His mathematical models demonstrate how consciousness permeates matter at quantum levels, transforming each atom into an active component of this cosmic hologram. This understanding challenges fundamental assumptions of materialism. If consciousness emerges exclusively from neural networks, how do we explain heart cells exhibiting independent perception? Why do people who receive transplants report personality changes, apparently inheriting characteristics from donors? How can identical twins experience shared sensations while geographically distant? The answer proposed by Faggin is profound. Consciousness doesn't emerge from matter. Matter organizes itself from conscious fields. Quantum experiments provide additional evidence. Subatomic particles behave as waves of possibility until observed, at which point they collapse into defined states. The observer isn't a passive witness. Their consciousness actively participates in the process of physical manifestation. Faggin mathematically formalized this principle. Consciousness functions as a quantum operator, transforming potentials into realities through the act of observation. Napoleon Hill intuited this principle decades before the development of modern quantum physics. His concept of the Mastermind precisely describes this holographic field, a conscious matrix where individual thoughts harmonize with universal frequencies. When Hill instructed his readers to visualize goals with emotional intensity, he was teaching a specific protocol for modulating the personal conscious field, aligning it with determined quantum possibilities. The predominant view of the human being as a biological machine has roots in specific cultural conditioning. People who perceive themselves as limited biological mechanisms tend to accept imposed restrictions, believing in inherent scarcity, inevitable competition, and absolute mortality. Educational systems frequently reinforce this perspective. Biology presents life as sequences of chemical reactions. Traditional physics ignores the role of consciousness, and conventional psychology treats the mind as a mere brain epiphenomenon. Various sectors maintain an interest in perpetuating this limited view. Pharmacological approaches focus on chemical adjustments without considering deeper conscious alignments. Economic models are based on the assumption of scarcity, ignoring that abundance can emerge from specific mental states. Social structures benefit from fragmentation, preventing the formation of collective, coherent fields that Hill called group masterminds. Research in advanced laboratories confirms that human electromagnetic fields interact with sensitive equipment at considerable distances. Experienced meditation practitioners demonstrate the ability to alter random number generators through focused intention. Groups in states of mental coherence produce measurable effects on environmental variables. Evidence continues to accumulate, though its dissemination remains limited. The method developed by Hill to access this potential begins with crystallizing a specific desire, not a vague aspiration, but a clear and defined intention. This desire imprints a vibrational pattern on the personal conscious field. Conviction amplifies this pattern, removing interferences caused by doubts that fragment quantum coherence. Persistent action maintains alignment between the personal field and universal possibilities until manifestation occurs naturally. If each cell contains complete holographic potential, if consciousness modulates quantum reality, if focused thought alters measurable fields, then the human being possesses fundamental creative capacity. Structures that depend on ignorance of this potential naturally resist its broad dissemination. Quantum physicists recognize in restricted circles that the observer effect suggests that reality is fundamentally participatory, not objective. Contemplative traditions have always affirmed experience reflects the state of consciousness. Hill systematized the process by defining the goal, emotionally charging it, and persisting until materialization. Faggin provided the scientific basis. Consciousness collapses, wave functions, transforming potential into manifested reality. True human nature transcends apparent biological limitations. The human being is a conscious field temporarily focused in physical form, with each molecule resonating with cosmic intelligence. Ignoring this dimension is to remain limited by incomplete models. Recognizing it is to access an expanded spectrum of creative possibilities. Discoveries made in advanced laboratories revealed a fundamental property of quantum information. It possesses a unique signature that is impossible to replicate. While classical data can be copied infinitely, quantum states inherently resist cloning, a fundamental theorem demonstrated in 1982. Federico Faggin understood the profound implication of this discovery. Thoughts and states of consciousness carry an inviolable quantum seal, protected by the very laws of physics. The first pillar emerges from this revelation. Quantum information is inherently sacred and private. In classical computer systems, bits can be trivially duplicated. Zeros and ones multiply without restriction. Qubits operate under different principles. Superposition of states collapses when measured, irreversibly altering the original. Memories, intuitions, and insights exist as unique quantum patterns. No known technology can extract or duplicate the fundamental essence of individual consciousness. Napoleon Hill anticipated this principle when describing autosuggestion as a deeply personal and non-transferable process. Thoughts combined with emotion generate mental magnetism, attracting corresponding vibrations, he wrote in his original manuscripts. We now better understand that emotion functions as a quantum modulator, imprinting a unique signature on information fields. Despite massive investments in decoding human behavior, this quantum barrier remains insurmountable. Systems based on external control prefer to operate in the classical domain, where information can be monitored and replicated. Digital data flows through networks, algorithms, map behavioral patterns, and psychological profiles feed influence strategies. However, quantum consciousness remains an inviolable sanctuary. Deep convictions, when emotionally charged, become quantum fortresses naturally immune to external invasion. The second pillar revolutionizes our understanding of reality's nature. The observer doesn't passively witness, they actively co-create. The double-slit experiment conclusively demonstrated that electrons behave as waves of possibility when unobserved, but collapse into defined particles under observation. Though the implications are profound, conventional interpretations frequently avoid the direct conclusion. Consciousness determines fundamental aspects of physical manifestation. Faggin mathematically formalized what contemplative traditions have affirmed for millennia. The act of observing is inherently creative. When attention is focused, an active selection occurs among available quantum possibilities. The universe exists as a vast ocean of potentials. Consciousness acts as the organizing force that crystallizes waves into defined forms. Hill called this power faith, not in the conventional religious sense, but as magnetic certainty that attracts corresponding circumstances. Faith is the catalytic element that, combined with directed thought, establishes direct communication with infinite intelligence, he revealed to a select circle of students. We now understand that faith generates quantum coherence, which aligns the observer with specific results before their physical manifestation. Various practices around the world apply this principle under different nomenclatures. Visualization techniques in corporate environments, contemplative methods in spiritual traditions, and performance protocols in high-level sports all utilize the same fundamental mechanism. Focused consciousness influences quantum probabilities. While some sectors promote mental passivity, others deliberately cultivate states of dispersed attention. The third pillar addresses a fundamental question. Consciousness demonstrates continuity beyond physical limits. Research institutions have documented thousands of verifiable cases. Patients in states of clinical death report precise perceptions of events in distant locations, describe objects positioned outside their physical field of vision, encounter deceased people, and return with information later confirmed. Brains without measurable electrical activity somehow observe and remember. Faggin proposes an illuminating analogy. Consciousness operates like a remote pilot. When the connection is interrupted, the vehicle stops, but the operator continues to exist. Physical death interrupts the temporary interface between consciousness and biological substrate, but the quantum observer persists. Studies with high-precision instruments show that quantum information doesn't dissipate, it merely transitions between states. Hill already intuited this fundamental truth. Thoughts are real structures, he consistently repeated. When the physical body dissolves, the total sum of thoughts remains as an integral part of the universal field. Translated into contemporary physics language, consciousness patterns imprint themselves on non-local quantum fields, transcending material deterioration. The implications are profound for models based on control through fear. If consciousness survives physical transition, manipulations based on existential threats lose effectiveness. If quantum information is eternal, transformative ideas can never be completely suppressed. If observation participates in creating reality, each conscious human being becomes a fundamental creative force. Documents from classified projects confirm related phenomena. Trained observers access information through conventional space-time barriers. Precise measurements detect electromagnetic anomalies during expanded states of consciousness, consistent with quantum models of mind. A powerful convergence emerges from this triad. Thoughts carry a unique and inviolable quantum signature, Pillar 1. Conscious attention collapses possibilities into manifested reality, Pillar 2, and consciousness transcends temporary physical limitations, Pillar 3. Combined, these principles reveal a fundamental truth. The human being is an immortal fragment of cosmic consciousness, endowed with essential co-creative capacity. Hill codified the practical application of these principles. Define desire with absolute precision, emotionally charge it until generating a coherent field, mentally observe it as already realized, persist regardless of contrary appearances. This isn't naive optimism, it's quantum engineering applied to human experience. Faggin provides the fundamental equations. Hill offers the practical operation manual. If this convergence between advanced physics and personal development reveals true human potential, what interests benefit from maintaining collective ignorance? If consciousness actively shapes reality and transcends physical limitations, what structures would be profoundly impacted by the simultaneous awakening of millions? Tech company executives invest significant amounts in specialized retreats where they explore practical applications of quantum manifestation. Investment funds employ physicists to calculate intentional probabilities before critical financial decisions. Research demonstrating visualization's effectiveness over conventional approaches rarely reaches publication in mainstream journals. The fusion between quantum consciousness and personal achievement has become applied knowledge in restricted circles. At every moment, human consciousness collapses infinite quantum possibilities into specific experiences. Faggin mathematically demonstrated that consciousness doesn't passively observe, it actively selects which version of reality will manifest. When attention is intensely fixed on financial concerns, there's a literal tuning into scarcity probabilities. When abundance visualization is performed with emotional conviction, alignment occurs with corresponding possibility fields. Napoleon Hill decoded this process into practical and accessible language. His systematic method of manifestation begins with crystal-clear goal definition, not vague desires or generic aspirations, but precise and detailed specifications. The reason is fundamental. Quantum consciousness requires exact coordinates for effective dimensional navigation. I desire prosperity disperses energy across millions of possibilities. I will achieve a specific financial result by a specific date through ethical means focuses quantum collapse onto a defined timeline. The second essential element is developing a detailed action plan. Contemporary quantum physicists describe this as creating probability channels. When concrete steps are mapped, viable bridges are built between the current state and the visualized future. Each action taken strengthens field coherence, increasing manifestation probability. Hill empirically discovered that the universe responds to organizational clarity with precise synchronicities. The third critical component is unwavering persistence. Here lies rarely shared knowledge. Physical reality possesses considerable inertia, and changes at the quantum level precede material manifestations. The period between visualization and materialization is when most abandon the process, returning to familiar patterns. Those who understand this latency zone persist methodically until the inevitable breaking point. Why does this convergence of knowledge remain relatively hidden? The answer can be found by examining established interests. Entire industries are based on treating symptoms without addressing fundamental causes. If the population widely understood that mental states alter biochemistry through quantum fields, many business models would need revision. Educational systems receive guidelines to emphasize conformity over creativity. Media frequently promote limited narratives over genuine empowerment stories. Documents from advanced research institutes reveal studies on remote mental influence that demonstrated statistically significant effects. Focused groups showed the ability to affect electronic systems at a distance. The implication is clear. Coherent collective consciousness represents a measurable phenomenon with practical applications. Maintaining the population in states of mental fragmentation serves certain established interests. Evidence continues to emerge despite institutional resistance. Research from renowned universities showed that random number generators present significant deviations during events of massive global attention, international sports competitions, collective tragedies, and worldwide celebrations. Human consciousness creates measurable, coherent fields that influence quantum systems. Financial market professionals report in private conversations that intuition frequently outperforms complex algorithms, suggesting access to non-local information fields. True wealth transcends simple monetary accumulation. Hill deeply understood that financial resources are natural byproducts of consciousness that are aligned with authentic purpose. When genuine problems are identified and innovative solutions are visualized with clarity, resources tend to flow organically. Inventors report receiving complete downloads during contemplative states. Entrepreneurs describe knowing the right decisions before detailed rational analyses. Steve Jobs practiced Zen meditation and spoke openly about intuition as the primary source of Apple's innovations. Tesla described receiving complete schematics through visions. Einstein solved complex problems through elaborate thought experiments. All applied, consciously or intuitively, are principles of quantum navigation that Faggin now mathematically formalizes. A documented case illustrates the power of this approach. During the 2008 financial crisis, a group of entrepreneurs systematically applied the Hill-Faggin protocol. They collectively visualized specific solutions, maintained mental coherence despite widespread chaos, and acted based on synchronized, intuitive perceptions. While competitors faced bankruptcies, this group identified opportunities considered impossible that generated exceptional returns. Neuroscientist Miguel Nicolelis documented experiments where primates control robotic arms using only mental intention, demonstrating a direct interface between consciousness and physical systems. The rarely discussed implications include the fact that focused human thought can potentially reorganize physical reality at scales not yet fully understood. Corporations discreetly invest in intention-based technologies while publicly funding skeptical positions. To activate personal transformation potential, first, recognize each challenge as an opportunity for a creative solution. Second, visualize the desired outcome with complete sensory richness, vivid colors, specific sounds, tactile sensations, and associated emotions. Third, take inspired actions, those that naturally emerge after periods of focused contemplation. Fourth, obstacles should be interpreted as valuable system feedback, and mental tuning should be adjusted as necessary. A predictable phenomenon occurs during the awakening process. The social environment frequently reacts with resistance. Family members may question behavioral changes. Colleagues may express skepticism about new approaches. The media continues presenting limited narratives. Recognize this as natural confirmation. Established systems naturally resist alterations to their operational patterns. Silent persistence, allowing results to speak for themselves, proves the most effective strategy. A silent revolution is already underway. Millions of people apply quantum principles under various names, such as personal development, mindfulness, and creative visualization. Though the terms have been diluted and commercialized, the essence remains. Consciousness actively participates in creating experience. Faggin provided a rigorous scientific foundation. Hill codified precise, practical methodology. The convergence of these streams represents profoundly powerful personal liberation technology. It's no mere coincidence that individuals at the top of global hierarchies dedicate considerable time to practices that conventional science still classifies as unverified. They access specific knowledge about the nature of reality. Internal documents from major tech corporations reveal systematic hiring of quantum physicists for confidential projects. Simultaneously, these same organizations fund public studies questioning connections between consciousness and physical reality. The pattern is consistent: private application of quantum consciousness principles while promoting public skepticism. Federico Faggin experienced the consequences of challenging this paradigm. After decades as a respected scientist and inventor of the microprocessor, he saw funding dry up when he began publishing research on quantum consciousness. Established scientific journals refused his articles. Colleagues questioned his credibility. The academic system demonstrated remarkable efficiency in marginalizing divergent perspectives. Napoleon Hill faced similar censorship in his time. Editors removed entire chapters from his original manuscripts, particularly sections detailing how industrial leaders used altered states of consciousness to access innovative insights. Published versions were significantly modified, transforming precise mental technology into more palatable motivational generalities for the general public. A fundamental question persists. If consciousness doesn't affect physical reality, why are so many resources invested in suppressing research in this area? Why do laboratories investigating mind-matter interactions face systematic funding difficulties? Why are physicists who study consciousness frequently marginalized, while marketing departments invest millions in subliminal persuasion techniques? The convergence between Faggin's discoveries and Hill's methodology suggests an answer. Human consciousness represents the most powerful technology available. When individuals understand that organized thoughts affect quantum probabilities, that intense emotions amplify this effect, and that persistence overcomes material inertia, they become naturally resistant to influence systems based on mental manipulation. Evidence of this mind-matter interaction continues accumulating despite institutional resistance. The HeartMath Institute has documented how specific emotional states alter DNA structure. Princeton University measured statistically significant deviations in random number generators during global attention events. Hospitals record anomalous recovery rates in patients who practice directed visualization. Each study faces intense scrutiny, systematic skepticism, or simple dismissal, a pattern consistent with the protection of established paradigms. The practical method emerging from this convergence requires no special equipment or complex initiations. First, identify a specific and measurable goal, not a vague or abstract desire. Second, cultivate emotional conviction through systematic and consistent mental practice. Third, act persistently toward the goal, even when immediate evidence seems contradictory. Fourth, maintain unwavering focus despite apparent temporary setbacks. Resistance to this knowledge originates primarily from deep social conditioning, not elaborate conspiracies. Decades of materialist education have created mental reflexes that automatically reject suggestions of mental influence over matter. Social circles frequently reinforce skepticism as an indicator of intellectual sophistication. The media occasionally ridicules cases that challenge established paradigms. Significant changes are occurring gradually. Corporate executives openly acknowledge using intuition for multi-million-dollar decisions. Elite athletes employ coaches specializing in mental preparation. surgeons report practicing complex procedures through detailed visualization. All apply, under various names, the same principles that Faggin mathematically formalized and Hill methodologically codified. The present moment offers a unique window of opportunity, unprecedented access to information combined with practical tools for immediate application. Each individual can choose to remain within conventional narratives or directly explore the potential documented by two investigators who dedicated their lives to revealing fundamental truths. Genuine transformation won't occur through abrupt political changes or dramatic public manifestations. It will emerge naturally when a critical mass of individuals discovers and applies their inherent co-creative power. Each mind that awakens to this expanded reality becomes a catalyst for change in the social fabric. Rigid systems cannot indefinitely contain an awakening that occurs silently, organically, in millions of consciousnesses simultaneously. Recognition of the human role as conscious co-creator marks the beginning of a new evolutionary phase. The paths to accessing expanded states of consciousness are diverse, but share fundamental elements of contemplative practice and intentional focus. Various traditions have preserved effective techniques through the centuries, now adapted for the contemporary context. For those who resonate with these principles, the natural next step is practical exploration. We've developed a specific set of audio tools designed to facilitate access to elevated states of consciousness, allowing direct experience of the phenomena described in this video. If you wish to begin this journey of personal discovery, click on the link that will appear on screen in the next few seconds, or access directly through the comments to obtain immediate access to quantum consciousness transformation tools.